So in the last video on this guy, the WT2 from Choyong, I discussed how to program amateur radio repeaters on this, and should be a card up there somewhere as a link to that video. This time I'm going to talk about the receiver function in here, which is the FM, AM, and shortwave function. And in order to do that, I bet you thought this was just a rubber ducky, didn't you? It's actually a telescoping antenna inside that you're to extend for listening to FM, AM, and shortwave. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to access those three bands. So we now have our antenna extended for listening to shortwave, FM, and AM. And I know what you're thinking, like, why has this guy still got the screen protector on? Well, let's just take care of that right now. Easier said than done. There, hope that makes everyone happy. So in order to get the screen to come on, just tap on the power button. And we want to go, first of all, into settings for the radio function. So in order to do that, hit 0. And you can see that Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are off. Just to show you, if you didn't see the last episode on programming repeaters, I'll show you how to turn it on and off just by toggling the OK button when it's saying Wi-Fi on off. And then we back out of that. And same thing with Bluetooth, just to make sure. Now, Wi-Fi doesn't have to be off in order to use the radio function, but Bluetooth function does. Same thing there. And it's telling you to turn off Bluetooth when using radio or a walkie-talkie. If you push the OK button again, toggle down or up to set it off. Go back again. All right, so let's continue in the menu system here. Let's scroll down to the first one that applies to the radio system specifically, and that's ATS sensitivity. Now, ATS is the automatic tuning system which will store, as you scan through a band, either FM, AM, or shortwave, it works on all three, it will store those channels or those frequencies. Now, what I found was I had to set this to very low. You can see that you can toggle through very high, high, balance, whatever that means, low or very low. I found that the ATS system was locking on to just noise and recording that as a memory location. So just a suggestion, try it at the default, which is balance, but I think very low is recommended. The next one is the FM start frequency. Now, in North America and probably Europe, I believe, we use the 87.5 megahertz starting frequency. You can see there's other ones here. There's 64 megahertz, 76 megahertz. So I think some of those apply to Asia, but not North America or Europe, if I'm not mistaken. So leave it at 87.5 if you're in those regions. And now the medium wave step, here in North America, stations are spaced 10 kilohertz apart. So that's where I've got that set. 9 kilohertz is for Europe and some other regions potentially. Next one is FM steps. I've set it to 100 kilohertz. So in other words, if you're tuned to 97.5, as you step up in frequency, it will go to 97.6, 97.7, and so on. So 1/10 of a megahertz steps, or 100 kilohertz. And shortwave steps, you want to kind of tune a little bit more finely there. You could set it to 10 kilohertz. I'm not sure if it even offers that. It's got 100 kilohertz, 1 megahertz, 1 kilohertz, and 5 kilohertz. I'd leave it at 5. That seems reasonable. And FM bandwidth, just leave it at auto. That's fine as is. AM bandwidth, this one I had an issue with. I found that whether it was at 1 kilohertz, which is ridiculous for AM, you couldn't intelligibly understand what was being said if you set that bandwidth to 1 kilohertz. But they have other bandwidths here, and these look like they're more suited to communications, like single sideband. But this radio only does AM. So whether you set it at 1 kilohertz or 6 kilohertz doesn't seem to make a difference. So I'm going to just leave it at 6 kilohertz for now. And FM attenuator, I've got it turned on. Now, I'm not sure exactly how that works. I'm finding there's feed through on both the AM and the shortwave bands, which might be partially due to FM, strong FM signals. I'm in a smallish city. It's less than 500,000, but still we seem to have, one radio, one FM station for every person in the city. So it's quite a busy market and a lot of RF. So I would probably leave it on. I'm not sure it made any difference at all. Let's first take a look at FM. Now, just before we do, I just wanted to point out that button number 2 is labeled FM, number 3 is labeled shortwave. But if you toggle by, short pressing that button number 3, it will switch between shortwave and medium wave. So let's touch the FM button, and as you can see, it started here at the bottom of the band. We said it would start at 87.5, and there it is. And this is something important to note down here. You see the word, if I get my finger out of the way, frequency. And that applies to whether or not you're in frequency mode or memory mode. Because if I hit memory mode, you'll see it says ADDR or address. So that's like switching between frequency mode and memory mode. So in order to do an ATS scan where it automatically records all of the frequencies that it encounters, just press and hold, in this case on FM, press and hold the 2 button. And now it will start scanning. You see channel coming up here, and it's showing you how many it's recording. So we've got, in my market area, it looks like we've got 14 channels. So now I won't turn the volume up to avoid, obviously, copyright issues. But if and it says we're in address mode, so if I now, and I think it does that automatically once it does an ATS scan. So if we just go up, if we get that back on, we just step through the channels. You can see channel 2, channel 3, 4, 5, and so on. Now if we go in frequency mode, what it'll do is, as we step, remember I said it would step in 1/10 of a megahertz step, so that's what it's doing. And when we encounter a frequency that has been stored, somewhere coming up here, you'll see a channel number pops up. So even though we're not in memory mode, we're in frequency mode, it will show you which frequencies are actually stored. Next is the AM band, or medium wave. So if we push button number 3, and just toggle it again because it went into shortwave by default. So now we're starting at the bottom of the AM band. And there's quite a bit of hum. I don't know if that's picked up by the microphone or not. There we go. If I push and hold this, it will scan upwards. And it's stopping on just very noisy signals. They're not even signals, just humming. Now this is with just the telescoping antenna. We'll put it on an outside antenna a little later. There's an actual station. More hum, buzz, whatever. There's a station, but it's kind of clobbered by some interference. There's more of that. It's not very encouraging if you're using this just with the telescoping antenna. That sounds absolutely awful, doesn't it? So I don't know what's going on with this receiver. It's supposed to be the TEF6686 chip, which I believe it's the right number. That goes into car radios. So you'd think it would be a bit better than this. So something I just discovered here is you can hear that noise over top of a radio station on an AM. Once the display goes off, that noise goes away. And it comes back once the display is on. So they obviously have a little problem with noise created by their own display. Another feature is to be able to do direct frequency entry, and that applies to FM, AM, and shortwave. So here on AM, I'm going to briefly short touch, well, once I get my display back, complete with display noise, I'm going to hit 0, and then I'm going to do it again, and then hit my next frequency. So that again works on all bands. So to go into shortwave, we just hit 3 again. And same thing here. I could put in 7850, and we can just barely hear it, but that's CHU Canada time station. Now, to do the scanning function, the scanning and storage function, again, we'd have to push and hold the 3 button. And it'll now start at the bottom. And this is early morning, so it's not going to pick up much on the low end of the band. But it will start to pick up channels, or radio stations rather, that are up in the 9 to 10 megahertz range. But you notice it's actually, you'll see up here, even though it's not currently reflecting the band that's in, it is actually jumping from one broadcast band to another. In other words, it's not continuously scanning the entire shortwave spectrum. So we'll stop that, hopefully. And now if you use this button, the up-down button, you can actually scan through frequencies that are other than in the standard broadcast bands. So it is possible to tune that way, and you can push and hold it, and it will scan through until it encounters a signal. There, it's hit a broadcast station. So recall that this button, number 4, it's called the VF and VM button. That refers to the fact that you're either tuning manually using the up-down buttons, or you're going into memory, and again using the up-down buttons to just go through stations that have previously been recorded. And I've already done that. So let's go from frequency mode into what's now called address mode. And by using the up-down buttons, you can see also up here it's telling you, because this memory scan is broadcast station oriented, it's showing you the broadcast band, the meter band that that signal is located in. Okay, this is an example of what can happen when you put a good external antenna on this radio on shortwave. In this particular band, you shouldn't hear any broadcast, you shouldn't hear any time stations. and you're hearing both right now. And I think this shows that with a good antenna, this can get very overloaded very easily. And I think if anybody from Choyong is watching, think about putting a high-pass filter and or a bandpass filter in the HF portion or the shortwave portion of this receiver's operating area. Here's another example of unwanted signals, out-of-band signals. This is what you can hear is FT8, which should be up on around 14074, I think. So this is just an image, which is quite undesirable. And I can also hear a little broadcast in the background as well, which should not be in that segment. I think you can probably hear that Morse code coming through on AM, on the AM band, over top of an AM station. Now that is coming through from the shortwave bands. Now that's not supposed to happen. And on a previous occasion I did hear some radio teletype and also a time station coming through on the AM band. So again, Choyong, if you're listening, you need to put a low-pass filter on the AM band. But in fairness, this is a fairly good outdoor antenna, and maybe if you went with something a little more modest, you wouldn't hear so many of these artifacts. As the Morse code coming in like crazy. Now, in fairness to this radio on shortwave, if you get strong signals, they will come through quite well. However, if we go a little further here, there's that buzzing noise that it sometimes latches onto, which is very annoying. But again, it does do a decent job in a pinch, and especially if you have a good outdoor antenna. So I hope that was helpful. Not the greatest receiver that I've heard. I wouldn't buy this WT2 just for the receive functions on FM, AM, and shortwave, especially shortwave. It really was subject to FM feed-through, and I think Choyong needs to look at putting a low-pass filter in there to prevent some of that from happening. So, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.